Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day, Miss Dwi Indarti and fellow classmates. My name is Nauli Rahma Fauzi Simanjuntak. Today, I will be presenting my work for Applied Linguistic Project 2, where I am to answer the following question. What linguistic features should Mr. Thompson focus on to identify bias in news reporting? As a linguist, Mr. Thompson is concerned with how language can shape public opinion, convey bias, and influence interpretation in news coverage. In this presentation, I will explain 4 major linguistic features that contribute to bias in journalism based on the materials I have prepared. These are lexical choice, framing, presupposition and implicature, discourse structure, and intertextuality. Let's begin with the first feature, lexical choice. First aspect is lexical choice as a macro-level linguistic feature. The definition of lexical choice. Lexical choice is about the specific words a journalist chooses when writing a news report. Often there are some synonyms or ways to describe the same thing, but the word they pick can carry different emotions or opinions. Some words sound neutral, while others make something sound more negative or more positive. These small word choices can reflect the writer's bias or hidden agenda. According to Fowler 1979, we should remember that language is never fully neutral. Every word we use has meaning and an attitude behind it. Even just naming or describing something is already a form of judgment or evaluation. So when journalists choose one word over another, they are not just telling us facts, they are also shaping how we feel about those facts. The word that journalists use can influence how readers think or feel even before any facts are explained. For example, calling a group of freedom fighters might make readers feel sympathy or admiration, but calling them militants makes them sound aggressive or dangerous. This kind of wordplay is what Mesfin Awokebakalu 2006 calls mystification, meaning the journalist is using language to hide or twist the truth, making it harder for readers to see what's really going on. It's a way of manipulating perception through carefully chosen language. For example, let's say a news article says illegal migrants flooded the city. The word flooded creates an image of something dangerous and overwhelming like a natural disaster. It sounds like the migrants are out of control and a threat. But if the same article said refugees arrive in large numbers, that sounds calmer and more neutral. It still says a lot of people came, but without making them sound dangerous or out of place. Second aspect is framing as a cognitive, linguistic, and pragmatic feature. The definition of framing. Framing is about how the news tells a story, not just what it's said, but how it's said and what parts are emphasized or left out. Journalists don't just report facts, they choose what to focus on, what to minimize, and what to leave out entirely. This shapes the way we understand the event. It's like putting a picture in a frame. What you include in the frame changes how people see the whole image. According to Edmund 1993, framing is when you highlight certain parts of reality to make them seem more important or noticeable. In cognitive linguistics, this connects to how language activates mental frames or mental model in our mind. As Hart 2018 explained, when we hear certain words or structure, we automatically picture situation a certain way, and that influences how we interpret the event, even if we don't realize it. Framing is powerful because it can influence how readers think without directly giving an opinion. For example, depending on how a journalist frames a protest, readers may see the protesters as either violent attackers or victims of injustice. Different types of frame, like the violence frame or injustice frame, automatically assign moral roles such as who is the victim, who is the aggressor, who is the savior, who is the hero. So even if the same facts are used, the angle of the story changes how people emotionally react. For example, look at these 2 sentences. Police clashed with protesters. This sounds neutral. It shows both sides were involved equally. This is called a reciprocal frame where both are shown as active participants. And the second sentence, protesters attacked the police. The sentence sounds more aggressive. It puts all the blame on the protesters and makes the police look like the victims. This is a transitive agent-patient structure where one side, the protesters, is the active doer and the other, the police, is the target. The third aspect is presupposition and implicature, the pragmatic feature. The definition of presupposition. Presupposition is when a sentence includes an assumption that the writer expects the reader to accept as true even though it's not actually stated or proven. The definition of implicature is when the writer implies a meaning that's not directly said but is understood based on context, tone, or background knowledge. Both are part of pragmatics, meaning that they rely on how language is used in real situations to communicate more than what's on the surface. According to Grice 1967, people often say things in a way that lets the listener figure out extra meaning without being too obvious. This is called implicature. Van Dijk 2005 added that in news reporting, these tools can reflect ideological beliefs, is that ideas that shape how people think about the world. By using these background assumptions, journalists can insert opinions or bias without stating them clearly. Presuppositions make biased ideas sound like facts because they are hidden inside the grammar of a sentence. The reader doesn't always notice them or question them. Implicatures, meanwhile, are useful for journalists who want to guide how readers interpret something but don't want to look openly biased. This way, they can influence readers while avoiding criticism since they never said it directly. For examples, even the corrupt mayor admitted the mistake. This presupposes that the mayor is corrupt, even though there's no evidence given. The sentence is about the mistake, but the label corrupt is slipped in as if it's already true. Readers may believe it without questioning it. The second example, finally, police restored order. This sentence implies that there was disorder and chaos before, probably caused by protesters. It doesn't say who caused the problem, but the word finally and the phrase restored order lead us to assume that protesters were to blame. The last aspect is discourse structure and intertextuality as a macro-level feature from critical discourse analysis or CDA. The definition of discourse structure is about how a news article is organized, which details come first, which voices are quoted, and which are left out. Meanwhile, intertextuality is when a journalist refers to other texts, quotes, or past events to give context or build a connection. It can also mean borrowing familiar genres or styles to shape how a reader understands the news. Together, they shape the overall narrative of a news article, not just the content, but how that content is framed and who gets to speak. According to Norma Fairclough's three-dimensional model in critical discourse analysis or CDA, we can understand media language by looking at three levels: the text itself by the words they used, the discursive practice, how the text is produced and consumed, and the social practice, what values, power, or ideologies it reflects. He believes bias in the media isn't just about words, it's built into the routines and patterns used to support powerful groups or ideas. These patterns are often repeated so often they feel normal even when they are biased. There are three main ways this happens. First is agency suppression. Journalists may use passive voice to hide who is responsible for something. For example, mistakes were made. If the voice says who made the mistake, this protects those in power. The second is selective quoting. Journalists may only include quotes from government officials or experts while leaving out the voices of everyday people or opposition groups. This makes it seem like only certain people's opinions matter, which creates a one-sided history. And the last is headline structure. Headlines are the first thing readers see, and they can shape a reader's interpretation of the entire article before they even read it. For example, the way a headline is written can lead to very different reaction. Let's compare two headlines. President defends controversial law. This makes the president look active and authoritative. It centers the government side of the story. And the next headline is outrage grows over repressive law. This focuses on public anger and frames the law as harmful or unjust. It centers the people's voice. If I were working as a researcher with Mr. Thompson, I would suggest that he use all four linguistic features together, not just one or two. This means looking closely at the word used, lexical choice, how stories are framed, what is implied through presuppositions and implicatures, and how the structure of the whole article guides readers' understanding. By combining micro-level analysis like word choice, grammar, and hidden meanings with macro-level analysis like who gets quoted, how headlines are written, and which perspectives are included, Mr. Thompson can find out how the media subtly pushes certain ideas or ideologies. This kind of full-layered analysis is what experts in critical discourse analysis and media linguistics recommend when studying bias in journalism. It helps reveal the hidden ways media language can influence what people believe and how they view the world. Thank you for watching my presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nauli Rahma Fosisi Manjuntak, and today I will be presenting the second topic of my Applied Linguistic project. Previously, I explored linguistic bias in journalism. For this second project, I will focus on a new and important issue, how the government can promote the use and preservation of indigenous languages through education. Let's begin. The first method that I approach is Mother Tongue-Based Multilingual Education, or MTB-MLE. The implementation strategy. MTB-MLE is carried out in 3 stages, each based on the learner's grade level. Stage 1 is for grade 1 until grade 3. In the early years of schooling, students are taught entirely in their first language, the language they speak at home. The national language is introduced only as a spoken subject, not used for academic learning yet. This helps children build confidence and understand lessons better in a language they already know. Stage 2, grades 4 until grade 6. In this stage, there is a gradual shift to using both the first language and the national language in the classroom. This bilingual approach helps students slowly adjust to the national language while using their first language to understand complex ideas. Stage 3 is for grade 7 until grade 9 and beyond. By this point, most instruction is done in the national language, but students still study their first language as a subject. This ensures they remain fluent and literate in their mother tongue, even as they continue learning in the national language. Justification. The use MTB-MLE is supported by linguistics research, particularly the critical period hypothesis, which suggests that the earlier a child develops literacy in their first language, the better prepared they will be to learn a second language. Starting in first language gives a strong mental and academic foundation. This strategy also helps make education more inclusive, especially for students in rural or indigenous communities where the national language might not be commonly spoken at home. By using the language children are most familiar with, MTB-MLE helps reduce learning barriers and promotes equal access to quality education. The next approach that I use is for teacher education, certification, and recruitment policy. Indigenous teacher development. To support effective mother tongue-based education, it's important to train and certify teachers who speak the local languages. This section focuses on how to develop qualified teachers from indigenous communities. Teacher training colleges or TTCs. This should be built in indigenous areas and offer programs in the local languages. This ensures that future teachers are trained not only in teaching methods, but also in using their own language in the classroom. Bridging programs should be provided to have fluent native speakers of indigenous languages gain the qualification needed to become teachers. These programs help them meet national teaching standards. The system should recognize traditional knowledge and language skills as a part of teachers' qualifications. This can be validated through communication recommendations or language proficiency tests, even if the individual doesn't have formal degrees. Employment policy. This part focuses on how to recruit and support indigenous language speakers to become teachers and work in areas where their language is spoken. The government should apply affirmative action policies giving priority in hiring to teachers who speak indigenous languages. These teachers can act as role models and help bridge cultural understanding between the school and the community. To reach students in remote or nomadic communities, the policy includes mobile teachers units where the teachers can travel to these areas and provide flexible, seasonal education tailored to the community's way of life. The next approach that I use is in curriculum and learning materials development. Materials creation. To support effective learning in the mother tongue, it's important to have materials that reflect the student's language and culture. This involves creating textbook, reading materials, and audiovisual tools that are not only written in the local language, the first language, but also culturally relevant. These materials should be developed together with linguists, teachers, and respected community elders so they reflect both accurate language use and local values. Building digital libraries and open access platforms where students, teachers, and families can access resources such as audio dictionaries, traditional songs for children, and recorded oral stories. These tools help preserve the language while also making learning more engaging. Language standardization. For some indigenous languages that have never been written before, there is a need to create standard forms. This part focuses on organizing that process. A national indigenous language commission should be created. This body would take the lead in formalizing indigenous language by developing orthographies, writing system for languages that are only spoken, creating grammars and dictionary to support teaching and learning, and working closely with universities to document and research these languages in a more structured and academic way. The last approach that I use is relating to legal, constitutional, and policy framework. National recognition. To fully support MTBMLE, the government must first update its language laws. This include recognizing indigenous languages as CO official languages at the regional level. This means that these languages will have legal standing in their respective areas, just like the national language. Ensuring that all citizens, especially those from minority groups, have the right to receive education in their own language. This protects linguistic rights and promotes equal access to education. Alignment with international frameworks. The policy should also be in line with international standards and human rights agreements, such as the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, especially Articles 13 and 14, which emphasize the right to preserve, use, and be educated in one's own language. The second is UNESCO 2003 document, Education in a Multilingual World, which supports the use of multiple languages in education. ILO Convention 169, which protects the right of indigenous and tribal communities, including language use and education. Institutional structures. To manage and implement this policy effectively, there needs to be a formal institution. The government should create Department of Multilingual Education under the Ministry of Education. This department will oversee and manage all MTBMLE program nationwide, provide funding and coordinate efforts in research, teacher training, and program evaluation to ensure the policy works and improves over time. In conclusion, this language policy sees education as a powerful tool not only for teaching but also for protecting and preserving indigenous languages. At the same time, it helps build national unity by including all language groups in the education system. The policy is based on strong foundation upon linguistic theory, social linguistic research, and successful example of multilingual education from around the world. Its main goal is to empower local communities, improve the quality of education, and protect language rights for everyone, especially those from indigenous backgrounds. By combining national policy with international agreements and considering the actual conditions in each local area, this policy makes sure that no child is left behind just because of the language they speak. Instead, it treats linguistic diversity as an asset, a source of national identity and social progress. All right, that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions or feedback, I will be happy to discuss them. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.